Have you ever wanted to set up a fully parametric vise? Well, join us on this tutorial with the Learn It channel. So welcome back to another episode from the Learn It channel. Today we are going to dive into Fusion CAM, and I thought there's no better thing to start off with CAM than to design our own parametric vise. So let's get into it. Let's go over to kurtworkholding.com. Now, why Kurt? Well, Kurt is made in the USA. It's a fantastic brand. And not only that, but on their website, they have so many different options to choose from. We've got vices, workholding, tombstones, so many different options that have all of the dimensions, all of the information we need. But better yet, it has the 3D files for us too. So let's find what we're looking for. Let's go to single station vices. Let's just pick a Kurt 6-inch single station vise. And you can see how many different options we have. Let's go to the HD 690. Once we go there, we can see that we have all the different features, dimensional data, everything we need. It's an expensive vise as well at $979. But this is what we're really interested in. Choose a CAD format. So let's go down to the drop-down menu. And we can see that there are so many different types of software programs here. Well, which file do we want to download? Step. Let's just download the step file. Download. This takes a little while to generate the model. And there we go. Click to download. Once we've downloaded it, now we can import it or upload it into Fusion 360. Let's do that. Let's go up here to upload. And we can drag and drop our file right there. Upload. This will take a while as well to generate. Now that it's complete, we can close it and go find the file. There it is. Kurt Workholding HD 690. So now that our vise has been uploaded, we have opened it. We can see that it is bare bones. Here is our vise. There's no texture, there's no appearance, and actually the orientation is wrong as well. Don't worry about that. We're going to address all of those in a little bit. So one thing that you should pay special attention to is with our main assembly, if we right click, make sure to not capture design history. This is fundamental whenever we upload a file and we do a ton of work to it, especially like a vise like this, we actually don't want to capture the design history. Well, why not? Well, picture all of the different adjustments that we're going to make to this vise. If in the future we want to use it in a different program, a different file, a different setup, we would have a timeline with so many different types of adjustments to it. We would input that timeline into our new file and it would just get more complicated. It would actually chew up more of your processing power as well. So we want to mitigate that. We want to keep as few items possible in our timeline, and one way to do that is to not capture the design history. The next thing you'll notice is that all of our parts, all of our items for our vise are located in the subassembly right here. And there we have it. Everything is right there. Let me just rotate our vise. So what we're going to do, instead of having all of these individual items, which again will take up good processing power of our computer when we input it into different operations in the future, which we don't want to do. And it makes it more complicated when we want to just have simple bodies to work with. Remember, once we're done this part, we are just going to have a stock item that we can adjust parametrically, and the vise will adjust completely to that stock item. So instead of having all of these individual parts, we are going to narrow it down to 3. Well, what are those 3 parts? Let's go back to kurtworkholding.com. And we're going to go to Parts and Accessories and go to Replacement Parts. And let's find our HD Vise replacement parts. That's the vise we're working with, HD 690. There we have it. And if we ever don't know the naming convention of different parts, this is a perfect resource to go to, because not only does it show us a drawing here, but it shows us each of the names below. So here we have it. We are going to actually have 3 components in our main assembly. We're going to have our vise, and we're going to have number 20 and number 14, which is our movable jaw and our stationary jaw. Now we're actually going to have 2 more parts. What are they? So we're going to have the 3 main ones, and then we're going to have just our jaws, 15 and 29, which are our jaw plate and our groove lock jaw plate. Why? Why are we going to have these jaws off to the side? Well, in the future, we might want to use aluminum jaws. We might want to use some other type of jaw system that comes from Kurt. So we're going to put those as their own individual components that we can easily adjust or easily change or easily hide in the future. So total, we will have 3 main and 2 sub. So let's go back to Fusion. So in our main assembly, we are going to create those components. New component. So we're going to call this vise. The second component we will call stationary jaw. The last one will be our movable jaw. And then we will have our 2 individual jaws. So new component and groove lock jaw plate and jaw plate. So there we have it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then we have our master assembly, which now we are going to adjust. So let's go back to our main assembly here and activate that. And we'll expand our contents of our subassembly of the vise itself. Now, one thing with Kurt I've noticed is as an error is they've actually given us 2 groove lock jaw plates. So as we click on one, we can see it here. Let's hide it. And then we have another jaw right up here. So we actually have 2 jaws in one. So let's delete the second one. We don't need that. And we'll take this first one and let's drag it into our groove lock jaw plate. There we go. Let's do the same thing with our jaw plate over here. We're going to drag it right down there. Let's hide those both now. Great. So now let's look at our stationary jaw. Here we have the stationary jaw and 6 socket head cap screws. Well, let's find them and bring them over into our stationary jaw assembly. A little secret here, once we move it, we can hide our stationary jaw component and it will hide it on our screen as well. And then our stationary jaw itself. Let's move that into there. Perfect. Let's do the same thing with our movable jaw. This little screw that's left over, it's hidden. We don't really care about it, so we're just going to delete it. Now, everything else that we see here is all going to be part of the vise assembly. So let's just grab all of that and drag and drop into vise. And we can delete that main assembly that came with the file from Kurt and delete it. Great. So now we can view our stationary jaw, our movable jaw, our groove jaw plate, and our jaw plate. So before we go on to doing our parametric modeling, we have to join these bodies together. Let's just take a look at our stationary jaw, for instance. Here we have how many different bodies? We have 7. And if we open up our assembly, there they are. Well, we would like to combine all of these into one body. And the reason for that is we want to keep our future part as simple as possible. When we import our vise into any future operations or any different files or projects, we want to have them inserted as quickly as possible We want it to have an easy load on our processor, and we want to have things simple. And we don't need to have all these bodies as well. Remember, we're trying to keep this as simple as possible. So let's combine everything. We're going to combine our target body with all of our tool bodies. Go OK. Now we should only have one body right here. We can drag that and drop it into our main component, stationary jaw, and then delete everything else. So our stationary jaw is here now, and it is actually only one body. That's perfect. Let's hide that. Let's do the same thing for our movable jaw. Again, we are going to combine as one body, and then we're going to click on our body that we want to keep. And there it is right there. We can follow the dotted lines to where we find it, drag and drop it into our main component, and then delete all those subcomponents which have no bodies in them. Remember, we've combined them already. There we go. So now our movable jaw is only one component. Let's do the same thing with our vise now. So this is a little bit more complicated, but let's just take it one step at a time. So let's hide our main vise right there, and then we'll start joining everything together here. Let's do that. Combine. Can do that. Now we can combine this as well and hide it at this point. Select our screws. We can even delete the screws if we want. They don't really have to be there in our part file. Great. And then this actually does not join to our part right here. And the reason is there's a little bit of room in between those two components. So let's make our main vise active, and now we can combine our target body with our tool and this as well. Great. So now everything should be under this one body right there, and we can drag and drop it into the vise and delete everything else. Perfect. So now everything under vise only has one body. Everything under stationary jaw has only one body, and everything under movable jaw only has one body. So now we can move on to parametric modeling. We're going to go up to our master assembly here and capture design history. Now our timeline shows up on the bottom. So the first thing that we're going to do is orient our vise. So how can we do that? Well, let's just join it. We're going to click on that, go to our origin. There we go, and rotate it. I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees. This is going to be the direction that I am going to, when I insert this vise into a project, it will orient it just like you see on the screen. So let's go OK. And we can hide that origin and the joint. Now we have our stationary and our movable jaw. We have our vise, which we can't move. That is locked. That is joined to our origin. And then we have our groove lock jaw plate and our jaw plate right there. So let's first of all join our stationary jaw to our vise. How can we do that? Remember with joints that the rule applies this way. This to that, this to that. So we want to move this, which is our stationary jaw, to that, which is our vise. We don't want to select our vise and move it to our stationary jaw. That would move everything over and fix it to this orientation. No, we want to move the stationary jaw to our vise. So best way to do this, let's pick between two faces, and we are going to select this face and that face, and then we're going to snap it to, well, let's go to this point right there. Great. Now we're going to select our component number 2 and do the exact same thing. 1, 2, and snap it right to there. So now we just have to adjust our angle. We're going to go to 0. There we go. Our stationary jaw is now in place, and we can hide that joint as well. The shortcut is select the joint and press V. Great, now let's put our groove lock jaw plate there as well. So we can join this as a rigid joint. Perfect, there we have it. We can hide that joint as well. Now next, let's put our jaw plate and join it to our movable jaw. Perfect. Now we can join everything together. So let's hide that joint there, and we can join the bottom of that jaw to the bottom of this, rotate it to 180, and it should be perfect. There we have it. So now our vise is completely constrained, it's assembled. Now we can do our parametric modeling. So for our parametric modeling, we're going to open up our parameters, and let's create a bunch of parameters here. So we're going to have stock X, and let's just make up a random dimension. This will be adjusted according to what your stock will be in future projects. So let's just say it's going to be 6 inches, and we'll get a better understanding in a little bit of what this actually means. So enter. Let's create stock Y, and let's do 4 inches. And let's do another one, stock Z, and we'll call this 2 inches. Great. Now we're also going to have an offset value. So the stock is going to be centered right in our in the center of our jaws, but say we want to move our stock over to one side or to the other. So let's just call this stock offset. And we're going to put it at 0, let's go 1 inch right now. This will change in the future. And then one last thing we're going to do is we're going to create parallels. So we're going to call it parallel depth, and usually they're 1/8 of an inch. Let's call it parallel thickness. And then parallel width. Standard parallels are 6 inches wide. And then we're going to do parallel height. And let's just stick with, well, let's do 1.5 inches right now. So you should have all of these parameters before we proceed. So give yourself an opportunity to pause and input these parameters into your system. Great. So what do we need to create right now? We need to actually create 2 more components. So one component is going to be our stock. And then the second component is going to be our parallels. There we go. So let's go back, activate our main assembly. So one thing that we want to do right now is find our joint that we just created to join those two together. And we're going to adjust this here. So we can change our motion if we want to slider, but rigid is just fine enough. So let's go position. Now this is one thing that we're going to change. Our stock is going to fit in between our 2 jaws here. So this has to be a parameter, and we're going to call this stock Y. Great. Let's hide that. Perfect. Now we actually have to create our parallels as well. So let's do that. We can hide everything else. And let's create our parallels. We can just do that with a simple box function. And here we're going to go parallel thickness and parallel width, followed by parallel height. Now instead of a new body, let's create a new component. This will create a subcomponent in our assembly because we're going to have 2 parallels there. And then we're going to right click, copy, and paste. So These two parallels are going to be exactly the same. And we can go to our parameters and change our parallel thickness. Sometimes we'll use 1/4 inch. Oh, so it didn't do it. Why not? Width. Oh, that's why. We have to do parallel thickness. There we go. And parallel width. Perfect. Okay, so now let's just see parallel thickness. If we change it to 125, there we go. Our width, say we have 8-inch parallels. Yep, perfect. And our height, 2 inches. Okay, so everything is parametric there. Let's keep it at 125. Our width is going to be back at 6 inches, and our height, let's go to 1.5. Perfect. Now let's bring back our assembly. We can move our parallels off to the side, and we're going to join them here as well. So let's joint our first parallel to our jaw. Okay, and do the exact same thing over here. There we have it. So our parallels are in place. Now, as a little hint here too, we can go to our joints and we can rename this. So we could call this parallel to fixed or stationary jaw. Great. And then this one as well. Parallel to movable jaw. Great. That just gives us a little bit of organization in the future if we need to change something. So one last thing that we're going to have to create is our stock. So let's go there. Stock. We're going to hide everything else too. We can actually go right click and go isolate. There we go. So let's do the same thing. We can create a box. And here we're going to have stock Y, stock X, and stock Z. Perfect. So for the stock, I like to go to appearance and change it to something that's red. Let's go red here and pick aluminum anodized. And then what helps too, if we right click and go to opacity control at 50%. Now our stock will look like this. And when we import it into future programs, you will see your part floating on the inside because the opacity control is at 50%. So let's go back now. We're going to go to activate or turn on, make everything else visible. Let's move our stock over here. Now let's join it over here to our jaw. Now why don't we join it on top of our parallel? Well, that's a good question. If we were, and then say one day we weren't using any parallels, our parallel height would be 0. The parallel would disappear and our stock would not be able to find the joint location. So because our stationary jaw is fixed, it's best to select that to join with and then move this up in our parallel height direction. There we go. Enter. Let's go back to our joint, and this will be our offset. So say we're going to move our part off to the right. Well, we're going to put in our offset value right here. Great. Let's hide our joint now. So let's see how this is parametric now. Let's change our offset to 0, and now our stock will be centered. Our stock Z, let's see if we can, 4-inch height. Let's go to a 6-inch height. Perfect. Let's go down to a 1-inch height. I like it. 2-inch. Now what about our Y direction? Let's go to 8 inches. So our stock is not updated. Let's go back to our stock here. And for some reason, it doesn't seem to want to input the parameters there. So let's just call it stock. And this will be what direction? Stock Y. Nope, this is going to be stock X and stock Y. There we go. Okay, so everything is going to update perfectly. Let's just prove it. Our stock Y, let's go to 2 inches. You can see that our jaws and the stock update automatically. Let's go to 4 inches now. Perfect. And then X. There we go. If we've got an 8-inch stock or a 10-inch stock. Perfect. There we go. So let's just go down to a standard dimension here. Let's go to 4 inches in X. Let's go 2 inches in Y and 1 inch in Z. And we can also check our parallel height to make sure. Oh, we can. Let's go OK first of all and turn on our parallels. There they are. And let's just change our parallel height 1 inch. Everything moves correspondingly as well. Perfect. So I think 1 5/8 is the tallest parallels that we can put with this vise, and there it is, 1.625. So everything looks amazing. Congratulations, you just finished doing a fully parametric modeled vise with stock and parallels. Let's save our part. If you would like to give your vise a nicer look, well, we can add some appearances to it and some textures as well. So let's hide our stock first of all. Let's just take it one step at a time. Our parallels, for example, well, what kind of appearance should we include with this? So we right click on our parallel, go to appearance, and let's type in steel. And usually this is a polished. Although we're not using stainless steel, we're just going for the look right here. We could go steel satin if we want. I kind of like the stainless steel polished, so let's bring that in. It automatically updates both of them because they're the copy. The second parallel is a copy of the first. Perfect. So our parallels are now stainless, polished stainless appearance. The stock we're not going to change. We like that. Let's go to the groove plate and this as well. So generally these are hardened and ground. So let's go to our appearance as well. And I personally, well, let's keep it with the stainless steel polished. There we go. Okay, perfect. Let's hide that now. Let's go to our movable jaw. So what does our movable jaw look like? Well, let's go to Kurt workholding one more time. And we can look at our vise right here. So we've got cast iron and we've got some blue paint. So let's go there. And we are going to right click appearance and let's type in cast iron. There we go. So steel cast iron, cast iron. So this is what we like. Let's apply it to the entire body. Perfect. There we go. So now we've got this nice cast iron look. Now we want to change our bolts to black oxide. So a little secret here is we can just select all of that, click on faces, and type in black. Coating black oxide. There we go. So all of that should update as black oxide. Now, what else do we have? We have this nice blue paint with white characters. So let's do that. Let's find, first of all, I want to save coating black oxide. Oh, we've got it under favorites already. So let's go to blue. And we can find blue paint right here. Let's go metal flake. That looks pretty good. So same thing again. We're going to pick all those faces just like that. We have faces selected up there. Metal flake. Let's drag and drop. Oh, it's not working. Okay, so we just have to go back in time. Repeat appearance. Front. Select faces first. There we go. Blue. We're going to go blue metal flake. And we should be able to... Oh, yes, we don't want to do the letters quite yet. That's right. Okay, now we want to do white letters on the inside. So let's bring up white here. Oop. Okay, and we can find... let's go powder coat. That's probably the best option. Okay. So again, we're going to select those faces. And let's just drag and drop right there. And everything should be white. Oh, and we just have to make that blue again. Perfect. Let's do the same thing on the other side. So let's first of all do our... So the reason why I'm selecting from left to right is because if we go from the other side and go right to left, it will select everything. That's the dotted line window. We don't like that, so we're going to go to left to right, which selects only the things in our window. So let's do that one more time. There we go. Oh, it doesn't seem to be working, so just close, reset appearance, faces, back. There we go. We're going to input our white. Great. Blue now, and blue right there. Okay. So what do you think? This is looking pretty good. Let's go close. Okay, let's save that. So our movable jaw is done. Let's go to our stationary jaw and do the exact same thing. So we're going to right click, repeat appearance, and let's pick our cast iron. There we go. And actually at this point, what might be easier is if we make everything black oxide, and then for our faces, just put in our cast iron like that. Perfect. And again, I guess we can leave that as black. We don't really care about the bottom. Nobody will be seeing that. Perfect. So now our stationary jaw is done. Now we're going to move on to the complicated vise. So let's go back to our Kurt website. And we can see most of it is blue except for our main top. So let's do that. I would probably say that using blue is probably going to be the fastest right now. So let's do that. Appearance. We're going to make everything blue. And then go back to our faces and let's adjust a couple things here. Let's do our cast for these faces. Perfect. We'll go on over here and do the same thing. And then our faces up here, we'll use the stainless steel polished as well. Let's do that. Again, no one's going to see those holes as well. Great. And the inside here, we're just going to do the main faces. Remember, it doesn't need to be perfect. This is just for a little bit of decorating, you might say. Okay, so there we go. Our vise is completely finished right now. So let's just see our parametric modeling one more time. Our stock, 6 inches. Our Y, let's go 4. Our Z, 2 inches. Great. Our vise completely changes there. Great. And our parallel height, 1 inch. So that's working great. Let's turn it to 0 and see what happens. Great. So our parallels end up having an error, but our stock goes all the way to the bottom, which is like what we want. We can always hide our parallels at that point. Perfect. So our parallel height now, let's go back up to 1. Awesome. So I hope that you've enjoyed this tutorial. Take all of the principles, take all of the little things that you've learned, and have fun. Try and make your own vise. Try and make it fully parametric so that you can utilize these vices in the future. Let's save our vise now. To show you how we can utilize this with an actual machine part file is we can bring up our machine. Let's just hide everything. We'll just keep our table here, isolate. There we go. We'll go to our data panel and insert into current design. There we go. We can just orient this a little bit. Perfect. Let's join it now. Great, there we go. Okay, and then to use the parametric feature of this Vise, we have to go to our Vise here, right click and break link. Why? Well, if we go up to our parameters, you'll see no parameters right there. So we have to break the link. Now we can go to our parameters and everything is there. So we can adjust it to our part, whatever our part size is. Our Vise and our stock will adapt accordingly. So hope that you have really benefited from this tutorial today. If you have, please give us a like, give us a subscribe, and make a comment below. If you would like to purchase a fully parametric modeled Vise, please write to me. Please make a message below with the Vise information, whatever type of Vise you would like, and I can set up sending you a file in the future as well. So thank you so much for joining the Learn It channel. Looking forward to future CAM tutorials where you'll learn all about tool paths, setups, subplates, and the list goes on. So stay tuned, subscribe. So hope to see you in future tutorials. Take care.